Table number 152. Wow, what a weak slam that was. Anyway, so I've mentioned before multiple times that I don't really have a whole lot of love for the early 90s X-Men stuff, even though that's really kind of like required reading and was probably the high watermark of American superhero comics. Late 80s through the mid 90s, when the X-Men books in particular were selling at least 500,000 per issue. They were just running on all cylinders. You had people like Rob Liefeld and Louis Simonson and Fabian Nicieza and all these really big, well-known names, even to this day, that were absolutely destroying it on X-Men. And yet, it's kind of a big blind spot in my own personal comic reading experience. So this series is very much written in the style and drawn in the style of the early 90s X-Men stuff. So it's really a throwback book. So you've got Ed Brisson as writer. Ed Brisson also writes Iron Fist, which some people will say is actually the best book that Marvel's putting out right now, even though it only sells as well as the other terrible SJW books. You've got John Malin as artist, so I don't know what else John Malin has done before this. He seems like a pretty cool guy, and he may be one of us. You know, we can't let that get out too much, but he's known for drawing, and we'll see it right here. He caused a minor controversy a few months ago because the solicitations for Cable 155 were shown, and Blink, the character with the pink skin here, was shown in a newer, much more revealing costume than she'd ever had before, and when he got called out on it, it basically amounted to, well, screw off. And that's the weird thing about SJWs. They say, well, your hyper-masculine, standard superhero stuff isn't going anywhere. Nobody's trying to take it away. But they are trying to take it away. They show this time and time again. Anytime a book like this comes along that's, as they say, it's not in their taste, they want to try to get rid of it. But whatever. So I started reading this series mostly because Durstian Comics recommended issue 4, I think it was. And I sort of started dutifully reading it because I thought, well, I have to show that the books that aren't SJW do have an audience. So I read issue 4 and 5 very sort of half-heartedly. I wasn't all that into them. And issue 150, the one you just saw, I only picked that up really kind of on a whim. I wasn't all that excited about it, and then I read it, and then I got excited about it. It was no longer a chore to read it. I don't really know what they changed exactly, starting with this new arc here for the newer mutants, but it's the same writer, different artist than the first arc that the series had, but for whatever reason, it really picked up with 150. The problem is, this issue is kind of a step backwards in a lot of ways. Not only is, the story is okay, but there's some weird, technical problems with it that I really wasn't expecting. So, let's look at the editors here, and you see Chris Robinson, assistant editor, Mark Basso, associate editor, and Darren Shan and Mark Panicia as editors. So, I don't know who any of those people are, but obviously they're not the Milkshake Girls. I know for a while Captain Cumming was meticulously documenting all of the editorial fails that the Milkshake Girls accrued, which we got a fair number of them, but as you can see, none of these people fall into that, but there's some weird editing errors in this book that frankly puzzled me. So the story is that there's this obscure group of mutants called Externals, and they're functionally immortal. Basically, nothing can kill them, including things that you think that would, like decapitation and being nearly incinerated. But somebody is going around, and they're actually managing to kill Externals. So Cable's trying to figure out what they are. And the thing is, the Externals are not good people. Most of them, in fact, have tried to do some really terrible things in the past. So arguably, the Externals being gone is not inherently a bad thing, but Cable is trying to smooth out any deficiencies in the time stream, so there's not a whole lot that, even though the Externals may not be his biggest fans, he still has to try to save them. So they're going to this facility that's still owned by this corporation that, I'm not going to lie, I didn't follow all the details on it. They're going to the thing to find the thing. That's all I knew. Also, they really need a thing here that says who the teammates are. Because even stupid Weapon X had a thing that showed you who the people on the team were. Because I don't know who half these people are. I know some of them are old X-Force members. That's about it. Also, why is, not that I'm complaining, but why is Laura X-23 again? Like, I don't, like, it's stupid that they made her Wolverine, and I think she is still Wolverine in the main Wolverine series, but in this series she's X-23 again, which I'm not complaining about necessarily, but I don't know why. They don't explain it. She just simply is there. Anyway, what was I going to say? I forgot. Anyway, so they're going to the thing, and it turns out that they're here to find Gideon. So Gideon is kind of an interesting character. Well, maybe. I don't know. I don't know much about Gideon, but I know his origin. Well, I don't know much about Gideon, but I know the issue that he debuted in, because he debuted in the same issue. This is a big spoiler, by the way. I hope you've already read it. So Gideon's back. And he debuted in the same issue as Deadpool and Domino. And if you read that issue, which I think was X-Force 92, maybe 93, I don't know. Anyway, you read that issue, it seems very much like Deadpool was supposed to be a one-off joke. Domino was supposed to be kind of a big deal, but maybe not a huge deal. But Gideon was like the next big thing. He was going to be this mysterious new threat that was pulling all the strings, that was manipulating all this stuff. And, you know, like I said, even though I'm not knowledgeable about the X-Men, you kind of have to know about them. And until I had read the reprint of that issue, I had never heard of this guy. Obviously, this was, probably close to 20 years after he debuted, but I'd never heard of this guy. This guy really kind of almost fell down the memory hole completely. And meanwhile, Domino, she's still kind of a big deal, but Deadpool is everywhere. You can't get rid of Deadpool even if you don't want to. So it's just kind of funny how that played out over time. In any case, so Gideon is, Gideon has something to do with the externals being killed. And that's really the plot. And it ends with them getting stuck in Gideon's facility with a whole bunch of psychics. So there's some really weird, like I said, editorial fails here. So here they're in the, the Blackbird, and Cable is talking to the rest of the group, and he's basically saying what I was saying about how even though they don't like the externals, they have to save them because it's a ripple in the time stream. And then a character says, in response to that, like the butterfly effect, one small change can result in bigger changes. And then Cable chimes in, exactly that, X-23. So you can see the panel right here. X-23 is right there. And the person who said that is Armor, who, I don't know anything about her. I only know her because they said her name in the last issue. Like, the more I thought about it, the more I was confused about how something like this could happen. Because comics are written, penciled, inked, colored, and lettered. So, in order for this bubble to be placed behind Armor, that would have had to have been the last step in the process. But the thing is, this doesn't sound like something X-23 would say. I mean, you can see that she's kind of, hunched over and moping, and that's how she's been the whole book. I'm not sure she said an entire thing in the 2 issues that she's been around. She just kind of growls and slashes at people. However, Hisako, Armor, she has been kind of perky and, youthful and enthusiastic, so this sounds like something that she would say. So that would suggest that this is actually a writing error. But, they didn't catch it right before they lettered it. They didn't, I don't know. I don't know how the process works exactly, but it's definitely ultimately an editorial fail, even though I can't figure out where the error originated. Now, you may say that, well, okay, you're focusing on a relatively minor editorial fail in a book that's not known for having editorial fails. Well, the thing is, they do it again. It's not the only one. It's later on. Okay, here it is. So, we see this panel here. Like I said, I don't know anything about the externals. Celine was in the last issue, and then there's these other guys. And somehow Blink is with them. That's all I know. So, right here we see Celine, and then she says, last time I saw him, he was all about $4,000 tailored suits and shoes that cost more than my car. And then the old guy here says, Absalom, show some respect. So I had to look this up to make sure that I wasn't going crazy. I'm pretty sure Absalom is this guy right here, the blonde guy. But here you clearly see that this person has dark hair. And then you see that she's moved to the body in the next panel and is hunched over the body in this panel. So it makes sense from these two panels that that would be Celine. And I don't know how Celine talks. I don't know if that's something she would say. But this could just simply be a coloring error. Maybe this was meant to be blonde hair and not black hair. But still, there's at least two editorial fails that I caught. And I'm not especially observant about this stuff either in a single issue. So, that's not good. And another problem that I've been having with this issue, in my estimation, the quality of the art has gone down quite a bit over just 3 issues. In this one, the line work, I've said this multiple times, that my ability to critique art is limited by the fact that I'm not an artist. I don't understand the technical element of creating graphic storytelling. But from what I can see, it seems like that the art quality just goes down fairly significantly from the last issue to this issue. I can't really explain why. I could not tell you exactly. It just seems like the lines aren't as clearly defined somehow in this issue. Yeah, it looks like John Malin inked himself. Maybe he's taking on a little bit too much. I don't know. Maybe I'm just going crazy and I'm just... It really hasn't, and I'm just seeing things that aren't there, but the art just seemed more impressive in the last couple issues. It's definitely a throwback style. It's much closer to what they would have done in the 90s than what they would have done nowadays, or even just a few years ago. I don't know, I'm hoping that this is some kind of minor lapse. I'm hoping that this isn't like a huge deal. Maybe I'm just seeing things that aren't there. I don't know how much longer the series is supposed to go on. A lot of people said that they're changing creative teams here in the near future, so I don't know who would be taking over, but the Max Bemis thing really pissed me off, like, a lot, and it actually made me do a moratorium on Marvel videos for a week. Like, last week I actually bought, not a lot of Marvel stuff, but a few books, and I just didn't do any videos on them because I was just, even, like, doing bad videos about Marvel just felt wrong after the whole Max Bemis thing. And then yesterday, I read Weapon X and just felt compelled to do a video on it. So I figured if I'm going to do a video about a trash book like that, I could at least try to pump up one of their better series. Unfortunately, this one, it's not as good as the previous ones in this same run. Although I do still want to see how it ends. Tell me what you thought. Tell me if you're reading this. Tell me if I'm just going crazy about the art stuff. I don't know. Like, comment, subscribe. In any case, this is Unring Chevron signing off.